Alright, so today we're going to be making a rock texture inside of Blender. This is going to be an intermediate to beginner type tutorial. I'm just going to walk you through basically exactly how to do this. So, we take our cube that is opened up right when we turn on Blender, and we're going to go to Mesh, Plane. We're going to create a plane just so we can see like what we're doing and all that. So, grab your cube, go over to this little wrench, hit Add Modifier, and we're going to add a subdivision surface, and then we're going to change the render to 1. Next, we're going to add another modifier, go to Bevel. So this is going to be our rock. You can make it look however you want, but for this tutorial it's going to be very like simple and just explanatory. Next, we're going to go over to the Modeling tab, and I'm just going to make this look a little bit more like a rock. So we're going to go over to these 3 selections here. We have the vertex, the edge, and the face. We're going to click face. So we can just sort of stretch this out, make it look more like a rock. And yeah. So this is going to be our rock. And yeah, if we go over to the layout again, now we can move this down, you know. And then we're going to add another window. We do this by coming down here, and you see there's a little plus sign, and we can pull out this window. Now we want to change this window to the shade editor so that we can start adding the material. So you come up here, right here, and you go to shade editor. Now once we're in the shade editor, we're going to start mapping the material. So we're going to create a new material inside of Blender that's going to emulate a rock texture. So how do we do this? It's fairly simple. We're just going to hit Shift A, or you could go up to Add, but Shift A, and then search for a color ramp. So we're going to grab a color ramp, and we're going to plug the color into roughness here, okay? So I know if you're new to all this node stuff, don't worry, I'm going to walk through literally everything. So it's not going to be like super quick tutorial, but I'm going to show you exactly how to do it. So once we have our color ramp, this is basically going to give us 2 values, and these 2 values are going to be able to be manipulated so that we have more control over the texture. That's all that the color ramp is doing. So next we're going to add so Shift A and then search for a Musgrave texture. We're going to grab that, take the height, put that into factor, and now we have our Musgrave texture applied. So if we change this, we can change this to like a I don't know, brown color, just to see. And once we apply this, you're not going to be able to see anything because you have to go up here, up to the render ports, so we can change this to texture. So you can see that now the texture is applied. It's just a different way of viewing it. You have wireframe, you have no textures at all, and then you have textured and rendered. So we could go into the rendered view too, just to view it. Alright, so next what we're going to do is edit the Musgrave texture to make it look a little bit more like something realistic. So we're going to go over here to detail. We're going to bump that all the way up. So we're going to add some detail. And we can go back over here just so you can see it for right now. But yeah, so we're going to add more detail. And then we're going to go to dimension, and we're going to change the dimension all the way down. Or maybe like 0.1 or 0.2. Doesn't really matter, but for this, yeah, so now you see we have a little bit of surface imperfections around the object, and that's looking pretty nice. We're going to change the scale. So we can bring this up, and you can kind of mess around with these settings, but I'm just going to put it to 5.7. That looks pretty good. You're going to have to go into your Blender Edit tab here and go to Preferences and make sure that Node Wrangler is installed and that it's enabled. So it says Node Wrangler. And then what we're going to do is click on Musgrave texture and then hit Control and T. And this will give us a UV mapping node. And what we're going to do is change this from generated to object into the vector. So now that we have all this, that's looking pretty nice. You can mess around with the settings, you know, you can put this down, makes it a little bit more shiny, or super shiny, I guess. Or you can make it more rough, so you can bring that up. But I think we're just going to keep it right there. So next is where we're going to actually give the rock like a texture to make it look like a rock. So that's all done through the normal tab. And a normal is basically just giving it height information onto your object. So we're going to do Shift A, search for a bump map. So, or not a bump map, just it's going to create a bump map. This is just a bump node. So plug your normal into your normal. And then what we're going to do is grab another color ramp. So Shift A, search, color ramp. And we're going to plug the color into the height. And once we have that, we're going to do Shift A, search for a noise texture. So now once we have the noise texture, we're going to plug the factor into factor. Oop. Factor into factor. Now you can see it gives us this bumpy looking, turd looking thing. We don't want this. We want it to be more rock-like. So what we do is we go over to the noise texture and we go to detail, and we're going to change the detail roughly about 14. I mean, you could go up to 16 too. Like, I mean, that looks pretty nice, so we'll just keep it at 16, I guess. But yeah, so that's a rock texture right there. However, we can change this around a little bit. I mean, like, look, if you bring the roughness up, that doesn't look very much like a rock anymore. It kind of looks like a pixelated rock. But so we're gonna keep that. We could actually bring that down a little bit, maybe like 4.4. That looks pretty good. So there we go. Distortion. This gives it more of like a twisty feel, kind of like lava rock, if that's what you're looking for, sort of like obsidian or glass-like. But yeah, so we're just gonna keep that at maybe like 2. Just give it a little bit of a different feel to it. And then we're gonna go back up here and we're gonna actually edit the color ramp. So as you can see, it's a little bit shiny for what a rock would look like, unless it's you know, maybe like granite or marble or something. So we're gonna change this black texture here. So we're gonna click on this and then change the black. I'm gonna just move that up on the color scale, and you can see if we go all the way up, it makes it completely not shiny on the roughness. If we bring it all the way down, that's super shiny. So these are basically just different values. So we're gonna move it somewhere in the middle-ish. And now we can see that that looks more and more like a rock. Yeah, we can also go over here and to the base color, we could change this. You know, we can make it like black, you could make it lighter. It doesn't really matter. These are all just values. So, and we could put it back to a sort of silverish gray. Maybe make this a little darker. Looks pretty good right there. Yeah. So next, what we're gonna do is we're gonna add another UV node to this. So just click on your noise texture and then hit Control T. And then what it's gonna do is bring up another UV node, and we can change this to object, camera, window, reflection, UV, normal, or generated. So if you want to have, say, if you want to make like sort of like a trippy animation where you're moving around it and it's all like shifting and stuff, you could do something cool, which is change this to camera mode, and this is going to make it follow the camera, as you can see. So it's just controlling the way the texture is mapping to the object. So, but for this tutorial, we're just going to keep it on object. So there we go. And basically right there, that's pretty much it for this tutorial. I mean, that's a pretty good looking rock right there. So all you have to do now is delete your light. You can hit X or delete and then add light. We're just gonna add a sunlight because it gives it a little bit better of a feel. And we're gonna bring this sun up so we can see what we're doing. So we have it. You don't need to follow along. It's basically already done, but I'm just gonna show you guys for an example. So we go into the lighting here. We can change this a little bit up. You want to do shadow and then do contact shadows if you want more realistic lighting. You can go over to your render port. You can add like ambient occlusion, bloom, screen space reflections, motion blur, all that good stuff. So that's pretty much our rock right there. I mean, here, we'll go over into this tab. We go into the world tab, and we can change the background. If you click this color right here, you can change this to a sky texture, and you can mess around with that. We also need to go into the rendered view. So you can mess around with the sky texture. Just do something like this maybe. This looks kind of nice, and we can move around using the sphere to make the sky whatever position we want. So, you know, maybe something like that. And once we have that, we can actually set up our camera. So we click on the camera, view, lock camera to view. And then what we're going to do is move and position the camera. So once we have the camera in position, we can click on the camera over here, click on the little camera tab, and we're going to put on depth of field. And what we can do is actually, well, there's two ways of doing this. I'll show you this way. You can edit it manually here with the focus distance, the f-stop, all that stuff. Or you could grab the object and actually put it here, and it'll automatically parent the depth of field to this object. So it'll keep only this object in focus. You can change the f-stop down, and you can see that affects how much blur is used for the depth of field basically. We're just gonna give that a render. So now you can see we have our rock texture, and it's looking pretty nice, and it's all rendered out and stuff. So yeah, it was just a very quick tutorial on how to make rock textures in Blender. And you could really make it on like a plane and then project it to like a high quality rock image. I just used this very simple low poly object to cast the texture to. But yeah, basically you could, in Blender, you could add any object, say like a cube. Let's do a cone just because it's different. So we can add this cone here, and we'll get out of the camera view. So we can add this cone here. We can go over to the shade editor, and we can actually assign the same material to the cone. So now you can see we have a rock texture on our cone. So you can apply it to literally anything. Yeah, it was basically this quick little tutorial. If you guys liked it, subscribe, leave a like, comment down below what type of tutorials you want to see next. And yeah.